Okay, real quick, I just wanted to share I'm using manual focus right now. I'm using the audio in the camera, so this probably sounds crappy. I just want to let you know I'm shooting in 1080. I'm shooting on the Panasonic S5. I'm using the 20-60 kit lens. This right here is at 20 millimeters, but otherwise it's at 24 or 50. I'm shooting in log. I'm shooting in 1080. Did I mention that? 1080. That's it. So here we go. On to the video. All right, so today I'm shooting this video with this big ass drive-in theater screen behind me. This big empty white screen, which is to me like an empty palette. You know, it's like starting anew. A new year, possibilities are endless, the world is our oyster. I have that as my metaphor for today's video because the video is talking about how, well, I'll get to it in a second, but I just wanted to explain why, just to give you an idea of how huge this thing is and how far away and gigantic this field is. Well, let me just show you real quick, hold up. All right, so I'm gonna walk back and show you now. Like, I was gonna do the video from right about here, right? But this is an idea of how big this place is. Like, it is huge. I am very far away from that screen, so I'm actually hoping that this film that I'm working on will be shown on that screen maybe in 2 summers because it's going to take a while to finish. But anyway, I just wanted to give you an idea of where I'm at, you know, and now let's get to the video. You are so lucky. Like, you need to be so grateful that you don't know shit about filmmaking and cameras and aperture and white balance and framing and all that kind of stuff. Like, you never even heard of so much of that stuff. You are so lucky, and you need to like not take this time for granted if you're about to make a film, because it is so much easier to make a movie when you have no idea what you're doing, if you are dedicated to your instincts, and if you've watched a lot of film, and if you're really being honest with yourself, and you know, if you're a stickler for perfection, you know, if you're somebody who really wants to do well and get the most out of your abilities, if you want to show everybody what you can do, if you're interested in telling the best story that you can possibly tell, you know, if you're trying to communicate and contribute in the most magnificent kind of way for you, you know, the clearest kind of way, if you're trying to disrupt, you know, if you're trying to really make people stop, you are so lucky that you have no idea what you're doing, because it is so much harder to make a movie when you really know what's going on, you know, when you really know that you have to have your dynamic range in order, you know, like you're really sitting there trying to decide whether or not you want to blow out the sky or not, you know, instead of just making sure that everything looks good with regards to the subject and the frame. You know, I mean, when you're just using your common sense, you're just kind of looking at it like, okay, that's the person talking, telling the story, and that's the person who I need to see, and I don't really care about anything else. When actually, that's the whole point of what you're trying to do. But instead, as you get to know what you're doing, and as you get to be more advanced, and you start to learn about all these creative tools, these amazing tools, these cameras, these lights, you know, all this stuff, these filters, these lenses, you start to really, I don't know, maybe get away from the story a little bit until you come back to the point where you know this stuff so well that all you think about is the story. But for a long time while you're learning, I think you were so preoccupied with getting it right, and also worried, and you have to admit you are worried about what other people think, about what other filmmakers think, about what other YouTubers think. Like, they're looking at your stuff and they're like, yo, that's trash. His white balance was off, that was out of focus. Like, you're worried about that shit. But the thing is, you're not worried about the story, and the story is the only thing that matters. And so you're so lucky. You know, you're like at the beginning, all you're thinking about is, you know what, I got a phone, I got a recorder, you know, for audio, and I got the whole world. Like, the world is my oyster. I can make a movie. So yeah, I'm finding it much, much harder now to make a movie because I know what I'm doing. And I guess, yeah, I guess I feel a little bit more pressure to get it right, you know? And I'm kind of getting to the point where it's becoming more second nature, but I'm certainly not there yet, for sure. So what have I been doing to fix this issue of mine? What I've been doing is going out and making stories instead of testing the camera all the time, instead of just shooting beautiful things, you know, going down to the river or going into the woods or going to these magnificent places up in the mountains or, you know, shooting amazing cityscapes and things like that. Instead of doing that, I'm trying to make these little stories, and I'm trying to just grab my camera and go out and shoot it, not think about it, you know. Think about, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to communicate? You know, what am I trying to share with you? What's the point? You know, why am I asking you to take your valuable time to listen to what I'm saying? You know, I'm doing it right now. Like, actually what I'm doing, I'm shooting at 24 millimeters, right? Now you, because you're at the beginning of what you're doing, you might not even know what that means. I didn't know what it meant. You know, I didn't know that my cell phone was shooting at 27 millimeters. I had no idea. I don't think in millimeters, you know? And so I'm trying to decide what's going to be best for this film. You know, I want to shoot at pretty much 2 focal lengths because I find that's what I do most of the time anyway. And I did shoot a documentary last year, and so I was shooting something real, a real story with real people. You know, I wasn't thinking so much about the technical aspects because things were happening so fast, you know? And I just had to get it done. You know, the lights weren't good, the space wasn't good, like nothing was good about the circumstances, and it came out great. Why? Because all I was thinking about was these kids, you know, and these teachers, and my friend Baba, you know, teaching these workshops, you know, these musicians. I was just, you know, thinking about honoring them, you know, honoring the story. And if it was a movie, honoring the characters. That's all I'm really thinking about. And so I'm going out now and I'm just like making up stories and sharing them with you. You know, like I shot that thing yesterday where, you know, I left my apartment and I did a story about getting to a certain place, and it was about reflection, I guess. You know, it doesn't have to be so literal, but you just have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and just shoot it. You know, shoot like you don't know what you're doing. So anyway, you're so lucky you're at that stage, because I've been in this stage now for a really long time where I'm learning all the technical aspects of everything. And it's like, it's pushed me away from the story quite a bit. You know, like I've been finding that I tell the best stories when I'm all by myself, just like rehearsing and working on stuff for my film. But then when I start working on the camera stuff and I get out here and I try to figure out what's the best way to do this, I forget the most important part, which is the story and the subject, you know, and the contribution. You know, what am I trying to say? Like, why am I asking you to take your valuable time to even listen to me if I'm not, you know, creating something of meaning, you know, something that hopefully matters to somebody? And so I'm really excited right now because I am getting to the point where I feel like this camera is becoming an extension of my heart and my brain. That sounded kind of like the Wizard of Oz, but you know what I mean. I digress. You know, I've just been thinking about how lucky people are who don't know anything, and how freeing the experience was of making The Center of Distance my first film, because I was just flying by the seat of my pants, you know. And over time, I just found myself telling the story, because after a while I knew exactly what that phone was going to produce. Like when I put that phone down under a car or on the back of a truck or on the side of a building or wherever I put it, I knew what it was going to look like, from the framing, from the colors, from, you know, everything. I mean, the only major mistake I made in that film, and if you watch the film, I bet you won't even see it, but there is one section where I did use autofocus, which I didn't use for 95% of that film. But there was one scene where I decided to try to use autofocus, and the phone decided to focus on the background instead of my face during a monologue. And luckily for me, it kind of looked like I could have chosen to do that. Like it kind of looked dreamlike, you know, and kind of surrealistic, so I could say to people, oh yeah, I did that on purpose, that was a choice, but nah, I messed that up. So I'm not going to trust autofocus for an actual movie. I'm just not going to do that. And frankly, I don't think anybody does. Like, I don't think any filmmakers really truly trust autofocus for a movie, but I don't know, maybe they do. You know, the thing I like about the A6400 is that I could punch, like I can go in and out of autofocus and manual focus while it's recording. You know, so I could be like an autofocus, and then I feel like if it's starting to lose it, I can press the button real quick and it'll lock on, and then I can go back into autofocus, and I can't do that with this S5. So that's kind of a cool thing, and it really helps in a lot of situations. But anyway, I am getting to the point where this camera is becoming a true extension of me, like I said, and that's been the reason I really haven't started shooting yet, although, you know, the other reason is that most of the film takes place in bad weather, and of course it's like 50 degrees on January 1st in upstate New York, which is crazy. So I gotta wait for it to snow, and I gotta wait for some bad weather. But in a way that's good, because I'm shooting every single day with this camera, and I want to get it to the point where it's just like, you know, it's like coming out of my body, you know? It's like my liver, my spleen, my heart, my lungs, my camera, all the same stuff. Everything is working together, and this is just another tool that I'm using to tell the story and to create this beautiful shared experience with you, the audience, so that it doesn't look like I knew what I was doing, but what it does is more feel like I was trying to connect with you, you know, trying to pull you into this world that I created and trying to get you to help me solve this problem, you know, get through this issue that I have to solve, you know, this conflict, we have to find this resolution together. That's what I want it to feel like. I don't want you to go, damn boy, that dude, man, his shadows are on point. He was able to pull back the highlights. The color correction was awesome. You're not even, you know, who thinks about that? Nobody. You know, I want you to just cry and laugh and feel and get it and be inspired and be happy for the characters, you know, or be sad or whatever. Like, that's what I want. I don't really care about the rest, not really. But to bring this video to full circle, as you start to learn more about this and as you start to get to really know what you're doing, you do start to think about honoring the craft. And that's the last thing I want to say about this. This is a very serious and something that should be really respected. This is a real craft. It's a real thing. And to not learn and to not delve into and dive into and commit yourself and be dedicated to learning how to do what you're doing really well, you're disrespecting the craft, you know? It's like getting on a basketball court without knowing how to dribble, without knowing how to shoot, without knowing how to play defense, without, you know, getting on a football field and not knowing about, you know, balancing yourself when you're backpedaling and, you know, not knowing the fundamentals. You know, it's disrespectful. You know, there's a lot of people in sports and in art too that, you know, when somebody gets on a stage and they don't know what they're doing, you know, other artists feel that that's disrespectful because they put in so much time and effort and energy and sometimes money. You know, sometimes people go to school, but see, personally, I don't care about any of that. You know, not the money part, not going to school. But what I do care about is honoring the craft, respecting those who came before you and developed this thing that you're doing. And in this case, it's filmmaking. Like, I really want to have a lot of respect and reverence for the people who've done this before me and from all the people that I'm learning from here on YouTube specifically, you know? Like if a guy like, you know, I don't know, Brandon Lee or Gerald Undone or Danny Gewirtz or Matty Happoy or somebody like that, if they happen to watch one of my movies, you know, like I think if they watch The Center of Distance, they would think, that's pretty good, you know? Like you're telling me that dude had no idea what he was doing and he shot it by himself on a phone? Like I think, then they would let me slide from all the stuff that if they didn't know that, they would go, that is trash as a cinematographer, as a filmmaker. Not as a storyteller, but as somebody who's using these creative tools, you know, who has to learn about exposure and white balance and focus and stabilization and things like that, movement. I want this film to be something that I can be proud of from a technical aspect in addition to the storytelling aspect, so that if one of those guys, or if some, you know, if Spike Lee or Steven Spielberg or somebody like that watches my film, they just feel the story. They just receive the story, and that's it. You know, they're not interrupted by the stuff that maybe I didn't learn. And I think I did a great job in The Center of Distance of getting past the stuff that I didn't know, because I knew that I wanted this to look like a professional film. Like, that's the only thing that I knew. And so I did everything in my power to make that happen, and I think I did a pretty good job. But I didn't know how, and when I look at it now, I see all this stuff that I could do so much better now. And I could have gone back and reshot a lot of stuff, but I decided, you know what? I want this to be like a documentation of where I was exactly in that moment in my life, and so I kept everything. But now I want this to be something that I could be proud of, not only story-wise, but technically, not only acting-wise, but as a shooter, as a cinematographer as well. I want my friend David Diaz to go, you know what, you're pretty badass now. Like, you know what you're doing. Because, you know, he helped me make my miniseries, Brooklyn Quartet, and I was so hard on him. You know, like, I was in control of that because I was directing. It was my project, but I was the actor too. And I know that there was a lot of stuff that he wanted to do, and I kind of cut him off from doing that because I was nervous and insecure. And I didn't trust him because I didn't know anything. So it still came out great, to his credit. It came out amazing. And I know that he had so much to do with that, you know, like everything pretty much, other than the performance and the writing, which was me. But what we see on screen, it looks great because of him and his friends who came and shot, you know, the stuff in the theater, and then him shooting everything in Fort Greene Park. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go find the link in the description of the Brooklyn Quartet miniseries. It's a beautiful marriage of live theater and film. And I'm very proud of it, but it has nothing to do with what I thought we were going to do at the beginning. And that was because I had no idea what I was doing. And so anyway, I've talked long enough for this video. I have to go work on my film now. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate the fact that you have no idea where you are or what you're doing right now, and take that as an opportunity to tell a story unobstructed, without having to think about all this stuff, without even knowing that somebody's going to judge you on your aperture. You know, and why did you choose a blurry background for that scene? Or why can I see everything? Why am I not focused on the subject? Like, you don't even know about any of that stuff. Appreciate that and go out there and do stuff. Like, you know, take the most important story of your life and share it, because trust me, if you do that from your heart and soul, you are going to move somebody, and you're going to inspire somebody, you're going to help somebody. People are going to appreciate you for that. So go out and do that. I highly recommend it. You will get so much from it. You will learn so much. You'll make so many mistakes, but you will accomplish something far beyond what your brain can fathom in this moment right now. When you get to the other side of it, 2 years from now, because it's going to take you a couple of years if you're dedicated to doing it well. It's going to take a long time. Trust me, it'll be the greatest experience of your life. My way.